It's that time of week again. Happy Monday morning. Another episode of Rehab with Roni, the podcast, is live. Let's get it. Today's guests are fellow Jane ambassadors, fellow physical therapists, turned clinic designers. Meg and Nina are two Canadian based physiotherapists who I have actually had the pleasure of meeting in person, and that's how I learned about their business initially. They are the owners of Articulate Design and Consulting. So, in addition to them being practicing clinicians, they took their creative brains, put them together, and formed a business that works on designing spaces for healthcare practitioners that represents them as a brand. They've done some incredible work over the past 5 years, and I am truly just so excited for you to get to hear from them. I always love when I find physical therapists who are still doing the physical therapy thing, but also have found a way to implement their creativity into other facets of their life. So please enjoy this podcast and thanks for listening. All right, Meg and Nina, welcome to the podcast. This is my second interview in 2 days where I've had two people on. So what a privilege for me and also great practice for me to figure out how to delegate my questioning. But Meg and Nina are the founders of Articulate Design and Consulting. And they started in 2020, which is sort of a wild time to start a business. So I want to hear a little bit about that, sort of the founding moments, and then what has occurred over the past 5 years. And I will give the mic to Meg first.
All right. Well, we're super excited to chat with you. And yeah, it's wild to think it's been a 5-year journey almost. We're coming upon our 5th-year anniversary. And in all honesty, we had no plans for this business. This was something that truly stemmed from a passion of Nina and I. So to back up, we're both physiotherapists, physical therapists for our American friends. And we're both located in Toronto area in Canada. And Nina and I have known each other for a long time as friends and colleagues. And while we're practicing physiotherapists, we have a lot of experience and interest in design in general. And we'd always kind of lament about how it was interesting that our industry, and when I say industry, rehab, but also just like medical healthcare in general, that whole industry is really so far behind in design of spaces to really promote wellness and healing and feeling inspired. And every other industry seems to have tapped into this about the environment really shaping the whole experience, and healthcare is just lagging so far behind. And we chatted about it a lot. And I think we both like to think we just really put it into the universe because we shared our thoughts with anyone and everyone who would listen. And we were eventually just asked to design a clinic for a friend and a colleague, saying, like, I really appreciate the messaging you're putting out there. I had designed my own clinical practice and it had some traction for the design of it and being a little bit different. And so we just said yes. And we designed that clinic and we thought, maybe this would be a fun little hobby on the side. And lo and behold, it's become a full-fledged business of its own and in its own right, and has taken us all over the world really to design spaces and places that really try to inspire healing and to really elevate the whole experience of rehab, of health and wellness.
Very cool. Nina, do you have anything to add to that, or did she pretty much hit the nail on the head?
She hit the nail on the head. The only thing I'll add is, 2020 was a weird time to start a business, but it was also when the lack of inspiration was the most apparent, right? It's like when you did and have to go into a healthcare space, it was really the opposite of healing. And I think that stark, contrast to what we envisioned was kind of a catalyst as well.
Yeah, when I think of medical offices, and you could lump physical therapy or physiotherapy into medical, you think like sterile, white fluorescent lighting, cold. These are all the things that I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of the doctor's offices that I've been in recently. And I think it's sort of cutting edge what you guys are doing, because I don't know anybody that's in this specific niche doing what you're doing. But physical therapy is a cool cross blend between like medical, but also a really fun environment. And I've been able to sort of integrate some of that into my own clinic design. I haven't used you, but I kind of, in retrospect, wish I had, and maybe it's not too late. But I think the PT space is a good place to start, because I think you can be a little bit more creative versus maybe like a surgical center. So are your clients mostly physical therapist offices, or is it all across the board?
It started out within the therapy allied health space because that's essentially where we have the most contacts, and really our business grew by word of mouth. But now we're really getting into wellness in general. We've designed a dermatology clinic, an OB's clinic. We're getting into more of the like straight medical space, and we've also done wellness spaces that offer like Pilates and exercise. So we've kind of we've branched out to this wellness industry. And I think certain niches of wellness have been thinking about this for a long time, and others have not been thinking about it at all. And those are really the spaces that we want to get into. I think it's so interesting how you kind of described what, a stereotypical medical space would look like. But then, like, when you think about your practitioner, I would hope that a client would be like, well, my therapist is warm and empathetic and, like energetic. And like, those are the things that we want to bring into a client's experience. And like, we feel like the space should really just enhance what that therapist's characteristics are.
I'm curious, because both of you are physios by trade, but what sort of artistic backgrounds do you have? Because I know a lot of physical therapists can be creative, like you have to be in the job itself, but nobody would hire me to design anything. So you must have some sort of background in this to some capacity. And I guess, Nina, you can go first.
I mean, not in the same way we collect letters behind our names as, physiotherapists, but personally, I have always had like an artistic creative side to me in terms of like everything from like designing my prom dresses to designing my dad's kitchen when I was 16 to, always like collaging IKEA catalogs and things like that. So I think that the creativity is something that maybe can't be taught. And I think that that has always kind of been a passion of mine, that the traditional stream of sport physiotherapy wasn't quite nourishing. And I think Meg kind of got to the same place as well, in her personal life and professional life. And that kind of, it was just a perfect moment for us to do this. But Meg, do you want to add to your
No, I mean, you know me,
characteristic?
I'm the same. I've been doing layouts since I was 3 years old, but I would also argue, Roni, you're super creative in a very different way. You create incredibly creative content. You are clearly a very skilled dancer. I think we think of creativity sometimes in a really narrow way of like, can we draw? Are we artistic? But I think a creative lies in all of us. I really do believe that. And I think the more analytical our job can be, regardless of what field you're in, the more we need to kind of pull in and lean into that creative side. I think it's a really healthy balance. And although Nina and I are like busier than ever, we both tell you we're more fulfilled than ever, because it feels like a really harmonious way of tapping into both sides of our brain to do design and then still use our skill set as clinicians to bring that function and bring that expertise of how a space needs to like be laid out, how it needs to function from a clinical standpoint, from a business standpoint, but then pull in the creativity as well.
What have the past 5 years looked like in terms of growth for you? Because you mentioned in the beginning, like now we've been around the world. So I'm assuming, but I don't have solid knowledge, that you're not practicing clinicians anymore, more so full-time articulate design. So when did that transition happen over the past 5 years?
Well, it's happened gradually. We actually are both still practicing, me much less than Nina at this point. And honestly, the plan is to not stop practicing because I do think, even in a very, very small way, I mean, Articulate definitely takes up most of my professional time, but tapping into being a clinician is really our superpower in the design world. And we've become very laser focused on that of this other skill set is what has led to our growth and has led to our ability to work everywhere, right? In that we speak the language of a clinician, whether that's a physical therapist or a chiro or a naturopath or whomever it may be that we're working with. And so staying in that industry and still being relevant, I think, is important to both of us. And to speak to the same point we made on the last question, it really feels harmonious to be tapping into both of those skill sets.
I think the growth part of it took us both by surprise, as Meg kind of said it, in the intro. We were like, "Oh, this would be a cool little side thing to offer," and now it's like, no, we have this bigger mission to change the industry, and we are kind of hell bent on making that happen. And with that comes bigger projects, bigger meetings, places that like boardrooms that we didn't ever see ourselves, having a seat at. And that's been really cool to give a voice to this vision. So I feel like that's been like the biggest growth, which then naturally just takes a lot of time.
Yes. I love the origin story, like grassroots beginning, something sort of coming out of nothing that you would have really expected, because my business growth has been similar. I talk about it a lot on the show, but like me just seeing people kind of on the side, like this will be a side gig. Never mind. I'm going to be in a gym space. Well, never mind. Now I have my own lease. And through that, I have learned that branding is important, but it's also not something that you necessarily learn in school, and maybe not something that's on the forefront of your brain when you're trying to conceptualize like a PT business. I don't think branding was really that important to me, but the longer that I live and the more that I'm in this space, I realize it is really important for people to recognize your brand and to have that space that people are excited about and that you're proud of. So, to that point, I'm curious, do you see common mistakes that people make in the beginning, like when it comes to clinic design or even just branding in general, that you would recommend to fairly new business owners?
I think some people have a different idea of what a brand is than Meg and I. I think that it can be a little bit oversimplified for people. So, we've heard this a lot. It's like, "Oh yeah, I have a logo and I have a font, and so I'm good. My brand is good." And it's like, for us, your brand is an extension of this whole vibe and ethos of your business, your philosophy. It's like a person, it's a personality. So we encourage our clients to think of it more broadly than just, a logo and some colors. We often encourage them to engage with other professionals who can help them conceptualize and develop their brand in a more robust and sophisticated way. But I think that's the number one kind of mistake people make, is that they don't realize that the brand is so much more than a few kind of, you know, utilitarian things.
Yeah, I think to add to that is it may feel unnecessary at first. Like someone going out on their own is like, well, I don't really need to do that. It's just me. I already have a client base. But the counter argument to that would be that everything else will flow so much easier the deeper you go into that brand identity, because then every time you post on social media, you have a very clear vision for like it being aligned with this brand identity. When you create a web page and you're adding copy, it's like, is my voice playful? Am I super serious? Do I want a more masculine tone, a more feminine tone? So when you've done the work up front to really define the broader brand identity or brand personality, then everything else, all the other work to kind of build brand recognition is way easier, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I'm curious for people like myself who we're just flying by the seat of their pants and picking up little bits and pieces of their brand as they went along. What do you recommend to people in the beginning to kind of lay that groundwork so they don't have to retroactively go back and try and
Well, sometimes doing it that way is the best way, right? It is hard sometimes for people to get that kind of robust or that depth right from the get-go. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just at a certain point, as you've practiced, you want to really like kind of embody that or put that into words in a way. And it may be, to your point, like you said, of collecting it along the way. And you get to a point saying, okay, this seems to be the consistency that I bring. This seems to be the energy that I bring. These are the type of people I want to attract. And then really trying to articulate that. So it doesn't necessarily need to be done day one, but it is an important exercise to do earlier in the game, to really be able to like grow and scale and feel really rooted in something.
Okay, Nina, I'll pick on you next. So say I'm Rehab with Roni and I'm like, I think I have my brand. How do I come to you and help and have you express that in my space?
Yeah, absolutely. It starts with a call because, seeing people face to face, hearing their voice, hearing them talk about their goal is really inspiring to us. It gives us a sense of just who our clients are. And our process is pretty thorough. We created our designer's version of an intake questionnaire, and that asks a lot of questions that are not just touching upon like the superficial, like the design element, like what colors do you like and stuff, but it's more about like, what are your goals? What's your philosophy in your space? What are your 5 and 10 year goals? How do you see your clients and clinicians interacting with the space? So we ask a lot of questions that I think only clinicians would really know to ask. And we synthesize all of that information with visuals that our clients send us and floor plans and inspiration. And we then kind of create a high level concept, and that kind of gives them a flavor. It's like a flavor board of what we see for their overall space. And then from there we get into, more sophisticated deliverables that make it really easy to execute the design. Most of our clients are remote, so we're not physically entering their spaces. So our deliverables are, robust enough that you could take it to your GC and have them build out the space and feel pretty confident about managing that project. And we have all different sorts of add-ons or packages that can, be specific to our clients' needs. But that's the gist of it. It's really just understanding more about the business than even the aesthetic. The aesthetic comes really easily once we understand the goals and vision of the business.
That makes sense. With it being primarily online, digital planning, do either of you find any setbacks with that? Do you prefer doing the in-person or the way that everything is essentially virtual these days, is that pretty good?
It's actually quite good. It's nice to be able to go into spaces. We love visiting spaces, but we've come to realize it's not necessary, and the design can be translated well. It's interesting, because success to us at the end of a project is that, if we use you for example, that someone could walk into your space, and because you are your brand at this point, really, right? Like, it's Rehab with Roni. Very much you are your brand. If you weren't in the space, that a new client could walk in and they could use 5 or 6 descriptive words about the environment, and it describes you, right? It describes your brand. It describes like what they can expect to get. So is it playful? Is it fun? Is it really, is it super hard and masculine? Is it, whatever it may be for any given person, but that it translates. And if you look at our portfolio, we pride ourselves that no spaces are alike. And that's kind of unique for a design studio because most people come to you saying, can you create this aesthetic for me? And even when people do come to us saying, oh, I like what you did here, can you do that for me? We're like, no, because that's them. That's their personality. That's their brand. We can use that as inspiration, but really that's success. And so to get back to the initial question, whether we're there live or it's done virtually, really that's what the marker is does this then translate well? And I think we've developed enough of a process and our deliverables are strong enough that that can transcend whether it's virtual or physical.
When you look back over the past 5 years, do either of you have like a favorite space that you've designed? And you don't have to go into specifics, but do you have maybe a favorite or even a least favorite?
Yes and yes. And I think it really comes down to how much the clients trusted us to take their baby and run with it. So I think, yeah, like some of the favorites are actually, it's the clients that we just loved. They had a practice they were so passionate about. They had this huge vision and this dream and they're go-getters. So it was exciting for us to try and like create a physical space that emanates all that. Um, or other ones were like, again, they trusted us with just creative license and we could be as creative as we want. And that those are kind of the best experiences. And then on the other side, the toughest were where we didn't have that. So there was a lot of, control issues or really dissecting the design so that it, ends up not being exactly the overall vision. Because I think one of the skill sets of designers that we have is seeing the forest through the trees, right? So it's like, okay, you might not love this like faucet and you may not love this one thing, but it's like put it together with everything and it's gonna, be a knockout. And so that ability, not everybody has. And when we get a lot of pushback because that vision isn't, there for our clients, then, slowly some of those wow factors kind of get flushed down the drain and money happens, right? Like people maybe don't realize, how expensive a project could be. Maybe they select a site that the site conditions become really expensive. And so they're draining a lot of money kind of behind the walls. And, that's why we actually love to help our clients even find spaces before they sign a lease, because that can really save them a lot of money in the long run. But yeah, I would say those are kind of the common factors with our most and least favorite projects.
Yeah, I think it's similar if you ask a therapist, like, what's their favorite part of the body to treat? And they're like, it's not the body, it's the person, right?
Yes.
It's very similar. Like, yes, we love how some places turned out aesthetically, but our best and worst is always chalked up to like the relationship. And I think it's the same being a physio as well.
Absolutely. You both are treating in person as physiotherapists, also business owners. In the next 5 years, I'm like, what's your 5-year plan? No, but what do you guys have coming up at all on the design side of things? Anything new, moving and shaking?
Yeah, always.
Yeah, sure.
Nina and I are not short for ideas. It's just what gets priority to execute on. Yeah, I mean, overall, like we like to return to our mission, and it really is to elevate the profession. Like, this is why we've gotten into this. We're both clinicians at heart. We really want to see our colleagues, our profession as a whole, be elevated to the standard at which it deserves. Like, people practice, they do amazing work, and they deserve to be in spaces that match that. And so while the kind of level of projects goes up, meaning like we're taking on bigger projects and expanding into kind of beyond just traditional rehab spaces, we're always still trying to like figure out how to continually evolve and kind of help all types of clinicians. So we have something in the works to speak to your earlier question of like pulling in for like people going out on their own how to create like a really pared down or simple brand identity and then put that together with a design concept, kind of like baby steps of like, here's how to get started without needing to do like a full, brand exploration with an expert or with a professional and then a full design package. It's something to like allow people to get started on a smaller budget. So that's in the works right now. And then, we have projects kind of going on all over the place. We have one in Australia right now. We have a few in Canada, a few in the States. And really, we just love to be able to empower, hopefully, people to just create spaces that feel really aligned with themselves, whether they hire a designer or they don't. And the more we can speak to that and have platforms like yours to do that, it just feels really good. And we're happy to do it. Nina, what else do we have in the work?
Well, I think like to speak to what you're saying about like we're always we're clinicians first and foremost, and we're always kind of thinking about what they need. There's certain, physical products that we find that like everybody needs in their spaces that are just not inspiring. So we have some really cool products that we've collaborated with amazing partners with. So we have some physical products coming down the pipeline. So that should be, great, available to everybody. You don't just have to be a clinician to kind of use some of these products, but that's coming down the pipeline as well. Um, yeah, and it's funny, just like today, we were just talking like more clients, or we're just having more physical presence in places. People are asking us to come see places physically, which is like awesome, but a challenge as well. As practicing clinicians. But yeah, I think the newest and kind of most exciting thing is, I think, creating products and also creating, an a package that is really accessible to new clinicians. Because I think new clinicians, new grad, Meg and I talk at the University of Toronto's physical therapy program. Like these students coming out are so, to me, inspiring. They're so ambitious. They have really cool visions. They want to invest their time and money into creating something really cool, but like they don't have money. So a lot of them don't. So I think creating something that's accessible that helps them achieve those goals is so fulfilling for us.
I love that. I wish that I had that like a year and a half ago, I think I've done okay on my own, but you guys do amazing work, and I'm really excited for the audience to take a look at you guys, take a look at your website. You guys are on Instagram as well, correct?
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, before we close up, I started this tradition yesterday. So you just subject 3 and 4, but if you could go back and tell your physical therapy school self one thing, what would it be? And whoever wants to go first can go first.
I want to say this really eloquently, but I haven't thought of the words. But essentially, the path is not meant to be linear. Just run with it. I mean, honestly, Nina and I would have never expected to find ourselves here. And I think the fact that we're yes people and we constantly say like, it's figure outable, we'll figure it out. I think it's been really great. And I think we could have missed this whole opportunity if we felt like we just had to follow, the path best laid or the straight path.
Yeah, I would tell myself to lean into discomfort. I think there's a safety behind, professional education, and which is awesome. But I do think that the best outcomes are the ones that feel a little uncomfortable to enter. And so that's, I think, the advice I would give myself.
These were lovely, wise words and a lovely conversation. Thank you both so much. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks so much. This was great.
Let's talk about the Jane app for a second. If you haven't heard by now, Jane is my clinical management software that I use to manage Everything in my day-to-day life that happens inside the clinic, whether it's patient documentation, AI scribe helping me with patient documentation, scheduling patients online, running reports, creating my online booking link, and even sending automatic texts to patients to remind them of their visits, Jane is literally my go-to. I look back on the days that I was practicing without the Jane app with much regret for not just implementing this system into my systems from the very beginning. You can get a 1-month grace period with my code PTRONI1MO. That's capital PTRONI, number 1, capital M, capital O.